ESPN just released their 53-man roster projection for the Los Angeles Chargers. And on today's video, we're going to go through that. What guys make the team and what guys do not make the team. There's a couple surprises, but there's also a couple of things that end up making a lot of sense. If you're fired up for the 2026 Chargers regular season to begin, hit the thumbs up button on today's video because we are right around the corner. One preseason game left to go, and then we are going to be getting into the action that everyone is so fired up about. Chargers Now is presented by Prize Picks. I'm your host, Will Ortner. And I think the biggest question that we all need to answer each other is, what is this roster going to look like in Los Angeles? Now, I understand where Chris Rim of ESPN is kind of coming from on some of his player picks and some of his player projections, but I also have my disagreement. So let's go position by position on this video, and then I'll kind of give you my 2 cents. We're starting in the quarterback room for the Los Angeles Chargers. Rim only has the Chargers keeping 2 guys. That is Justin Herbert, and then Trey Lance. Now, the reason why this is an interesting conversation to have is because, well, poor DJ Uiagalelei. Now, he is no longer going to be on the team, at least according to ESPN's projection. Where I look at DJU, I think he's done a lot of things in the positive for this Chargers team. I think he's done a lot of things in the positive for himself in his attempt to try and make this roster. But I kind of get where they're coming from. There's a little bit more upside to Trey Lance, although I will say there's a little bit more of a downside to Trey Lance. And then DJU could be someone that they end up getting on the practice squad, so they still keep that third quarterback. They just don't have him on the final 53. Man, let's look at the running back depth chart for this Los Angeles Chargers team. And it looks, I don't want to say all that different than what you were expecting. Now, in the ESPN article, they have running backs and fullbacks separated out. We don't have them separated out on our video because I make the rules, darn it. And this is what we've decided. Now, what's interesting about this crew is the Chargers only taking 3 running backs. That's not the thing that's interesting. It's the amount of people that said, well, the Chargers might end up moving on from Kimani Vidal. Well, when I look at the backups that you have between Patterson or Johnson, I don't think either one of those guys makes sense to come in and take over for Vidal, and I think that he ends up making this team. This is a crew that makes a lot of sense. Potentially, you could end up adding either Patterson or Johnson as one of your guys as a running back depth piece later on down on your depth chart. But I look at where the Chargers are at right now in the running back room, and I think very positively for this team. A lot of good players, a lot of interesting players, but a lot of players that I do think are going to end up making a big difference for this squad. Let's look at the Chargers wide receiver depth chart. Now, I told you early on when I was going through my cut candidates video that I thought there was a chance that KeAndre Lambert-Smith and Derius Davis would not be on this team. In fact, I said that I didn't think that both of them would be on this team. I thought one would. I thought that both would be a bit crazy. But when you look at what Chris Rim has come in and reported, feels like he has a pretty good confidence that both of those guys could actually end up making this roster. And this is huge for both of those guys. They are fringe roster candidates. They are on the bubble right now. Now, if the Chargers do decide to keep 6 wide receivers, which isn't that crazy, especially with both of those guys being really big additions on special teams, it would make some sense. But I'm telling you right now, the Chargers are going to have to continue to push and push those guys to make sure that they show up in a big way. Moving over to the Chargers tight end room now. Only 3 guys end up making this list. Now, what's interesting is you've seen a lot of Gadsden in this, I don't want to call it preseason warm-up work, but you're seeing a lot more use of Gadsden for the Los Angeles Chargers because it kind of seems like they're viewing Kohler and Njoku more as your 1 and 2 tight end. Now, this group is very deep. I do expect a lot of positives from them. And I do expect a lot of good things to be going with the tight ends. I expect to see all 3 of those guys out on the field, getting a lot of reps, getting a lot of run for the Chargers in this upcoming season. And that is a good thing in the long run. We have so much more to discuss on the program today. But first, I need to let you know that today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 sports picks app and is the best place to win cash while watching sports. With the football season right around the corner, there's no better time to cash in with our friends at Prize Picks. And I'll tell you this, the app is really easy to use. For player picks, just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. That's it. Prize Picks is available in most states, including California, Texas, and Florida. One thing I love is the new social feeds feature where you can share Prize Picks with your friends and copy lineups with a single click. You can actually follow me on the app at BigWill7774 to see all of my lineups. I have a lineup for the football action going on later on this year. Quentin Johnston, more on his receiving TDs. Kenyon Sadiq, more on his receiving TDs. Jackson Smith and Jigba, more on his receiving TDs. New user offer. Best of all, play your first $5 and get $150 in lineups if you win. Just use code HMA when you sign up. That's right. Prize Picks just switched up their offers, so there's no better time to join. Lock in and win that first lineup. That's code HMA at sign up to get $150 in bonus lineups if you win your first $5 plus lineup. Do the Los Angeles Chargers have a roster that is good enough to win the Super Bowl? Go down below in our comment section and you let me know, yes or no. I'm very interested in hearing what your opinion is here. I think that this team is loaded, and even with some of the injuries, this team can go a very far way. When we look at the offensive line depth chart, Rim ended up having the Chargers keep 9 guys. Spomer ends up making the squad a UDFA for this team. It's a bold move to have 2 young rookie centers, but it is also important to remember that the Los Angeles Chargers did have a big-time injury with Biotish, and so that could be the way that all shakes up. I'm happy for Spomer. He certainly has earned more and more playing time with this team. Do I think he'll get a ton of playing time, a ton of run during the actual regular season? In an ideal world, hopefully not. That means that you stay pretty healthy. But it's clear that the Los Angeles Chargers, they're going to be relying on some youth on that offensive line. Are they going to be able to come up in a big way? Let's jump over to the defensive side of the football for this Chargers team. And specifically, let's dive into that interior defensive line room. Now, I think there are a couple of guys that could end up making this team and end up making this roster that are left off. Now, obviously, I think the world of this crew, you got a bunch of guys that can do big things in a couple of big positions, right? I like Caldwell a lot. I trust Tomlinson and Tart. They're 3 guys, I really should say, that have been making plays during OTAs and during training camp. I would keep an eye on T-Rod Edwards, and the reasoning for this is I've seen him make a ton of plays in the preseason. He's a bubble guy for sure, so he's going to have to come in and have a couple of big-time performances this week in practice as well as in your final preseason game, and I do expect him to get a lot of run, but that is something that's going to be very interesting to keep an eye on. As we look at the linebacker/edge room, this is the group that I had the most, I don't want to say do with, but certainly this is the group that I went, really? These are the decisions you are going to make, ESPN. They had Kyle Kennard finding a way to make this team. In my opinion, I think it's pretty easy. The choice isn't Kennard, it's Dame Tucker. Dame Tucker has had a lot of success in the National Football League OTAs for the Chargers, minicamp, and of course in training camp. He is a younger player than Kennard going into his rookie year, although I'm sure their ages are pretty similar. But what I would say is that Kennard, you're having issues with energy and execution, and while Dame Tucker certainly isn't going to be a starter for you, that's a guy that has a very high motor. That is a guy that you want out on the field. Plus, he already knows the type of defense that Chris O'Leary is going to run and has been successful with it. I want to see Dame Tucker make this roster. Who's going to be a surprising or a shocking cut for the Los Angeles Chargers? I want you to go down below in the comment section and predict it. We are just a few short days away from that final 53-man roster, which, by the way, has to get announced and done on Sunday. So we're going to have a video out on that. Let us know who you think we're going to be talking about, unfortunately, not making this team. When you look at the cornerback room, a lot of guys getting helped out and getting kept with this crew. Smith, someone that's going to be interesting to look at as a backup corner. Certainly someone that's going to have to make his name known by being a big special teams performer. I think overall it's a really solid group. You got a lot of talent there and a lot of guys that can grow into a major role with this Chargers team, whether it is in that cornerback room or if it is, of course, on special teams. When you look at the safety room, I think it's fair to just say Derwin James gets his own position. Genesis Smith and R.J. Mickens are your backups. Tony Jefferson and Elijah Molden are going to be your starters. There's a ton of talent in this room as well, with a couple of different guys that, in my opinion, are going to take over rather quickly in Mickens and Smith. I think that those are going to be guys that we're talking about being starters in Los Angeles within a year or two. Just quickly looking at the ST depth chart, obviously you got Dicker the kicker, J.K. Scott, and Josh Harris. A solid crew that I'm definitely excited to see out on the field. Overall, I think this is a solid roster. I think that Chris Rim, albeit there might be some slight differences, did a very good job as compared to what I may be willing to do for my final 53-man roster projection, which we're still deciding if we get that guy out or not. Potentially could be coming on Saturday. Thank you guys so much for viewing today's video. I hope that you enjoyed it. Let me know that you enjoyed it by hitting the thumbs up button on this video. Subscribe to the channel as well if you have not. We're on the road to 7,000 subscribers. This month we passed 5 and we passed 6,000 subs. I think that we can do the same for 7,000. Come on in, smash that subscribe button. You'll get the latest news on the Chargers all year long. Thank you guys so much for viewing the video. Can't wait to see you next time. And as always, bolt the freak up.